Hi there. Welcome to Dreamy Histories channel. Tonight, we're stepping into one of history's most brutal transformations, where desperate poverty meets the glittering cage of Imperial China. You're about to experience life through the eyes of someone who gave up everything, quite literally, for a chance at survival. Picture this. You're 12 years old, watching your father sharpen a blade that's about to fundamentally alter who you are, all because your family hasn't eaten properly in 3 months. Yeah, this isn't your typical bedtime story, and honestly, you probably won't make it past 45, but at least you'll eat well for a few decades. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment letting me know where you're listening from and what time it is there. I love seeing how far these stories travel while you drift off. Alright, let's begin the story. The morning sun hasn't even risen when your father shakes you awake, his calloused hands trembling against your shoulder. You know what day this is. Your family's been talking about it in hushed whispers for weeks now, always stopping when they think you're listening. The air in your cramped mud brick home feels heavier than usual, thick with the smell of the herbal tea your mother's been brewing since midnight. She claims it'll help with the pain, but you catch her wiping tears when she thinks nobody's looking. Your stomach growls, a familiar companion these past months. The drought killed most of the millet crop, and what little survived went to pay taxes to the local magistrate. Your 2 younger sisters huddle in the corner, their faces gaunt from hunger. They don't know yet that you're about to save their lives by sacrificing parts of yourself you don't fully understand. The merchant who visited last week promised your parents 3 silver taels, enough to feed the family for 6 months and maybe even buy seed for next year's planting. All they have to do is deliver you to the knife master by noon. You dress in your only clean tunic, the one usually reserved for New Year celebrations. Your mother insists on combing your hair until it shines, her fingers lingering on each stroke as if she's trying to memorize the feeling. Outside, you hear the neighbor's rooster crow, and your legs feel like they might give out. Everyone knows what happens to boys who visit the knife master. Some don't survive the procedure at all. Maybe 1 in 10 bleed out on the table. Though the specialists claim their success rates are higher, those who do survive face a lifetime of being neither man nor woman, forever marked as something other. The walk to the knife master's compound takes 2 hours, but it feels like moments long. Your father carries a small bundle containing clean cloth and a ceramic pot, payment for the procedure itself. The specialist services aren't cheap, but he's known throughout 3 provinces for his steady hands and secret techniques passed down through generations. Historians still argue whether these castration specialists were formally trained or simply learned through gruesome apprenticeships. But either way, they held the power to transform desperate boys into potential palace servants. Other families are already waiting when you arrive. Maybe 7 or 8 boys around your age, each accompanied by stone-faced parents. Nobody makes eye contact. One boy, perhaps a year younger than you, openly weeps while his mother rocks him back and forth. Another sits perfectly still, staring at something none of you can see. You recognize the hollow look in his eyes. It's the same expression the autumn leaves have when they finally let go of their branches. The compound itself looks deceptively ordinary, just another courtyard house with red-painted doors and ceramic roof tiles. But everyone for miles around knows what happens behind these walls. The knife master emerges, a thin man in his 50s wearing a black silk robe. He counts the waiting families and nods, satisfied. His assistant, a boy not much older than you, and clearly a eunuch himself by his high voice and beardless face, begins calling names from a ledger. When your name echoes across the courtyard, your legs move without your permission. Your father's hand briefly touches your shoulder, the closest he'll come to saying goodbye. You follow the assistant through a narrow hallway that smells of burning herbs and something metallic you don't want to identify. Other boys who went before you haven't emerged yet, and you wonder if they ever will. The waiting room contains nothing but hard wooden benches and windows too high to see through. The distant sound of someone screaming makes your bladder feel suddenly, urgently full. The assistant returns, his movements precise and practiced as he gestures for you to follow. Your bare feet slap against cold stone floors as you're led deeper into the compound. The screaming has stopped, replaced by an eerie silence that makes your skin prickle. You pass a room where another boy lies motionless on a wooden table, his face grey and still. The assistant notices your stare and shrugs. "He struggled too much," he says in that unsettling high voice. "The blade went too deep." It's your first real understanding that this might be your last day breathing. The procedure room smells like rice wine and copper. The knife master stands beside a wooden table stained with dark patches you don't want to examine too closely. His tools are laid out on silk cloth, various sizes of curved blades, silver clamps, and items you can't identify. He barely glances at you while washing his hands in a basin of steaming water. "Strip," he commands, and your fingers fumble with your tunic. The room is cold, but sweat runs down your spine anyway. Two burly assistants appear from nowhere, their job clear as they position themselves on either side of the table. The knife master finally looks at you properly, his eyes clinical as they assess your body. "Good," he mutters. "Not too fat, not too thin. The fat ones bleed too much, the thin ones go into shock." He produces a leather strap and places it between your teeth. "Bite down when it hurts, scream if you must, but do not move. Movement means death." They bind your arms and legs to the table with practiced efficiency. The leather cords cut into your wrists, but that discomfort is nothing compared to what's coming. The knife master's assistant pours rice wine over your groin, the alcohol burning against sensitive skin. "This prevents infection," the master explains, though you suspect he's talking more to himself than to you. "My grandfather discovered this technique. He served the palace for 40 years. The master takes up his smallest blade, testing its edge against his thumb. A bead of blood appears instantly. "The secret," he says, positioning himself between your spread legs, "is knowing exactly how much to take. Too little, and the palace physicians will reject you. Too much, and you bleed out in minutes." His assistant hands him a silver clamp, and you feel cold metal against skin that's never been touched by anyone but yourself. The first cut makes you bite through the leather strap. Pain explodes through your body like lightning, radiating from your groin to every nerve ending you possess. Your vision goes white, then black at the edges. The assistants hold your thrashing body still as the master works with terrifying speed. You can feel things being removed that were part of you moments ago, and the wrongness of it makes you want to vomit. Blood flows warm down your thighs despite the clamps meant to control it. "The tubes must be kept open," the master mutters, inserting something into the new opening he's created. Later, you'll learn it's a small pewter plug that you'll need to remove every time you urinate for the rest of your life. For now, it's just another source of agony in a symphony of pain. The assistant pours more rice wine over the wound, and you actually do scream this time, the sound torn from your throat like a living thing. Time becomes meaningless. The master stitches with silk thread, each puncture of the needle making you wish for death. He applies a paste that burns worse than the wine, ground pepper mixed with herbs, another family secret. This stops the bleeding and prevents proud flesh, he explains to his assistant, clearly training him. Remember, they must heal smooth if they're to serve in the palace. Scarring means rejection. When he finally steps back, wiping his bloody hands on a cloth, you're barely conscious. The assistants unbind you and carry your limp body to a recovery room. It's only then you realize what's missing, not just the obvious parts, but something fundamental about how your body feels in space. There's an emptiness where there should be weight, a hollowness that makes you understand you'll never be the same person again. The recovery room holds 6 other boys in various stages of healing. One rocks back and forth, keening softly. Another lies perfectly still, and you're not sure if he's sleeping or dead until you see his chest rise slightly. The assistant who led you here, you realize now he must have been on this same table just a few years ago, brings water and checks your bandages. 3 days, he says. If you survive 3 days without fever, you'll probably live. 1 in 10 don't make it that far. Your family isn't allowed to see you during recovery. The knife master insists on complete rest and careful monitoring. You drift in and out of consciousness, aware only of the throbbing pain and the strange dreams where you still have all your parts. On the second night, the boy in the bed next to yours starts convulsing. By morning, his bed is empty, the straw mattress already replaced. Nobody speaks of him again. The master visits twice daily to check wounds and change dressings. Each time is fresh agony as he probes and inspects his work. Healing well, he pronounces on the 3rd day. No infection, no excessive swelling. You'll do. It's the closest thing to kindness you've heard from him. He hands you a small leather pouch. Your parts, he says matter-of-factly. Keep them preserved in wine. The palace eunuchs will want to see them as proof of your complete castration. Some families bury them with the boy when he dies, so he can enter the afterlife whole. You hold the pouch with shaking hands. This container of your former self, it weighs almost nothing, but it feels heavier than the mountain your village sits beside. Historians still debate whether this practice of preserving removed organs was widespread or limited to certain regions. But for you, it's simply another surreal detail in your new reality. The boy you were 3 days ago is as dead as your neighbor in the empty bed. What remains is something else entirely, a creature designed for service, neither male nor female, forever changed by a father's desperate choice and a knife master's skill. The journey to Beijing takes 3 weeks in a convoy of ox carts, each carrying boys like you, newly made eunuchs with papers proving your altered state. The knife master's certificate, stamped with his official seal, sits in your bundle next to that leather pouch you can't bring yourself to look at. Your groin still throbs with each bump in the road, though the worst of the healing is behind you. The other boys in your cart don't talk much. What is there to say? You're all headed to the same place, carrying the same losses. The capital appears on the horizon like something from a fever dream. You've never seen walls so high they disappear into morning mist, or roads wide enough for 10 carts to pass side by side. The smell hits you first. Thousands of people living pressed together, incense from countless temples, meat roasting in market stalls, and underneath it all, the sharp tang of human waste. Your village's entire population could fit in just one neighborhood here. The cart driver, who's made this trip dozens of times, chuckles at your wide eyes. Wait until you see the forbidden city, little eunuch. That's where your real education begins. The Forbidden City's gates loom before you like the mouth of some slumbering dragon. Red walls stretch in both directions, topped with yellow glazed tiles that blind you in the afternoon sun. Guards in elaborate armor check your papers with bored efficiency. They've seen thousands like you, desperate boys transformed into palace tools. One guard pokes at your groin through your clothes, confirming the knife master's work. "This one's clean cut," he announces to his partner, who makes a mark in a ledger. You're not even inside yet, and already you're just inventory being catalogued. Beyond the gates, the world transforms into something your peasant mind can barely process. Courtyards larger than your entire village open into more courtyards, each more magnificent than the last. Carved marble dragons writhe up pillars thicker than ancient trees. The floors are polished stone that reflects your shabby image back at you. Other eunuchs glide past in silk robes, their faces painted white with rouge on their cheeks, looking like beautiful ghosts. You still walk with the awkward gait of the newly cut, each step reminding you of what's missing. An elderly eunuch with skin like parchment collects your group from the guards. "I am Supervisor Chen," he announces in a voice that carries despite its high pitch. "For the next year, I own you. You will learn to walk, talk, eat, breathe, and shit according to palace regulations. Those who fail will be sent to work in the latrines or worse. Those who excel might one day serve in the Imperial presence." He eyes your ragged group with obvious disdain. Currently, you are lower than the cats who catch mice in the granaries. At least they serve a function. The eunuch quarters occupy a maze of buildings in the outer palace. Thousands of small rooms housing everyone from fresh cuts like you to ancient servants who've outlived 3 emperors. Your assigned space is a cell barely large enough to lie down in, with a straw mat and a chamber pot. Luxury compared to home, but the stone walls feel like they're pressing in on you. Your roommate, a boy called Little Rat, who's been here 6 months already, eyes you with a mixture of pity and calculation. "Half of us don't make it through training," he whispers that first night. "Supervisor Chen beats the stupid out of you or kills you trying." Training begins before dawn. You're awakened by bronze bells and expected to be washed, dressed, and standing in formation before the echo fades. The older eunuchs teach you to glide instead of walk, small steps, hips steady, creating an illusion of floating. Your peasant stomping earns you strikes across the calves with bamboo canes. "You move like water buffalo," Supervisor Chen screams. "The Emperor's concubines must not be disturbed by your clumsy movements." Again. Hours pass practicing the same 10 steps until your legs cramp and your new anatomy aches with unfamiliar pains. Language training is worse. Your countryside accent marks you as clearly as a brand. The court speaks in elaborate metaphors and ceremonial phrases where saying yes requires 17 different words depending on who's asking and their rank relative to yours. You bite your tongue bloody trying to master the Beijing dialect, each mispronunciation earning a slap. They teach you to read using texts about palace protocols, thousands of rules governing everything from how to hold a teacup, pinky, elevated, wrist straight, to the proper way to breathe in the imperial presence, shallow, silent, through the nose only. The sexual education component arrives in your 3rd month, taught by eunuchs who specialize in preparing concubines. Since you can no longer perform as men, you must learn other arts, how to use your mouth and hands to give pleasure, how to endure being used without showing discomfort, how to moan convincingly when you feel nothing. The mechanical nature of these lessons makes your skin crawl. You are tools for imperial pleasure. the instructor explains while demonstrating positions on wooden models. Your own sensations are irrelevant. Only the satisfaction of your assigned master matters. Meals in the training quarters are simple but regular. More food than you ever saw at home. Rice porridge for breakfast, steamed vegetables and small portions of pork for lunch. Soup with preserved eggs for dinner. Some boys gain weight quickly, their faces rounding out from the steady nutrition. Others, like you, struggle to keep food down, especially after punishment sessions. Supervisor Chen believes in collective responsibility. When one trainee fails, everyone suffers. You learn to help slower boys with their lessons to avoid group beatings. The palace hierarchy reveals itself slowly, like layers of an onion that make you weep. At the bottom are fresh cuts like you. Then junior eunuchs who clean and carry. Then specialized servants for different departments: kitchen, wardrobe, entertainment, bedchamber. Above them are the supervisors, then department heads, then the few dozen eunuchs who actually interact with the imperial family. At the very top sits the director of eunuchs, who some say wields more power than most princes. Each level has its own symbols, different colored belts, jade pendants, silk badges embroidered with rank insignias. You memorize them all because addressing someone incorrectly means punishment or worse. Your calligraphy lessons take place in a cold hall where your fingers cramp around brushes too fine for hands that once gripped farming tools. Master Liu, a eunuch whose own characters flow like water across silk, has no patience for your chicken scratches. Again, he shrieks, tearing up your latest attempt. The third prince will not accept love poems that look like pig tracks. The ink stains your fingers black, and you practice the same character, beauty, until your wrist feels like it might snap. Some boys have natural talent, their brushstrokes elegant from the start. You're not one of them, which means extra hours after dinner while others rest. The dance instruction happens in a pavilion with mirrors that multiply your clumsy movements into infinity. You must learn the sleeve dances, where silk extensions become flowing water or fluttering butterflies. The instructor, a eunuch named Precious Pearl, who moves like smoke despite being 60, demonstrates positions that require flexibility your farmer's body doesn't possess. Bend, he commands, pushing your back until vertebrae pop. Your spine must be willow, not oak. When you fall attempting a spinning movement, the other trainees titter behind their sleeves. Even here, barely 3 months after castration, hierarchies form based on who shows promise and who remains hopelessly crude. Music theory fills your afternoons with the sounds of badly played instruments. You must master at least 3, usually the pipa, bamboo flute, and small drum. Your thick fingers stumble over delicate strings while the music master sighs dramatically. You play like you're beating laundry, he moans. The boy next to you, a merchant's son who had some education before cutting, coaxes melodies that make even passing servants pause to listen. You practice until your fingertips bleed, leaving red smears on the pipa's pale wood. The worst part is knowing you'll need these skills to entertain whatever master eventually buys your contract. Poetry composition might be the cruelest requirement. You must memorize thousands of classical verses, then learn to create your own in various styles. Your brain, used to remembering only planting seasons and weather patterns, rebels against metaphors about autumn moons and spring blossoms. A concubine must be clever in conversation. Your literature tutor explains, you must quote ancients while making your master feel brilliant. You must craft riddles that amuse but don't challenge. You must lose at word games while making it seem accidental. The mental gymnastics exhaust you more than any physical training. Etiquette drills consume entire days. How to pour wine, wrist rotation matters. How to kneel, weight distributed just so. How to accept criticism, eyes downcast, slight smile, murmured gratitude for the correction. You practice serving tea until you can balance a full tray while gliding across uneven floors. Dropping anything means starting over. After one boy spills hot water on a supervisor, he disappears later. Little Rat whispers he's working in the night soil collection department, the worst assignment possible, emptying chamber pots until death releases you. The cosmetics training reveals another level of transformation. You learn to whiten your face with lead powder, though the older eunuchs warn it eventually eats into your skin. Rouge application requires understanding color theory. Too little and you look sickly. Too much and you look like a street prostitute. They teach you to extend your eyebrows into perfect arcs, to redden your lips into rosebud shapes. The first time you see yourself fully made up, you don't recognize the creature in the mirror. Some boys cry at their reflections. You just stare, wondering if your mother would know you now. Fragrance knowledge proves surprisingly complex. Different scents for different seasons, occasions, and ranks. Jasmine for spring entertainments, sandalwood for religious ceremonies, musk for intimate encounters. You must learn to blend perfumes that complement your master's preferences without overwhelming their own chosen scents. The perfume master makes you identify hundreds of ingredients blindfolded. Failure means inhaling pepper until you sneeze blood. Success means moving to more subtle distinctions, telling apart 3 grades of ambergris or identifying which region produced a particular rose oil. Your body continues its strange transformation throughout training. Without the male hormones, your voice settles into a higher register permanently. Body hair stops growing, leaving your skin smooth as a child's. Some boys develop small breasts, their hips widening into feminine curves. The supervisors monitor these changes, noting who might serve better as a masculine attendant versus a feminine beauty. You fall somewhere between, not pretty enough for the highest-ranking concubine positions, not masculine enough for guard-adjacent roles, middle-tier material. Supervisor Chen declares, which means harder training to compensate. Combat basics come as a surprise, not real fighting. Eunuchs are forbidden proper weapons, but defensive movements disguised as dance. How to use a silk scarf to choke an attacker. How to jab with hairpins at vital points. How to scream in frequencies that summon guards. The palace holds 10,000 jealousies, your combat instructor warns. Other concubines, bitter wives, rival eunuchs, all might wish you harm. These skills keep you breathing. You practice on straw dummies, imagining the face of whoever might eventually want you dead. The medical instruction focuses on practical matters, how to prevent and treat the urinary infections common to eunuchs. Your altered anatomy makes you prone to them. How to maintain the dilation of your shortened urethra using silver sounds. How to recognize symptoms of the various sexual diseases that spread through palace bedchambers. They also teach you about fertility herbs and moon cycles, not for your own use but to assist female concubines in their perpetual quest to conceive imperial heirs. The irony of you, forever sterile, helping others breed isn't lost on anyone. Flower arrangement might seem frivolous, but it carries deep significance. Each combination sends messages: white chrysanthemums for death anniversaries, peonies for wishes of wealth, lotus for spiritual purity. You must know which flowers the Empress Dowager abhors, Carnations remind her of a dead rival. And which combinations bring luck for conception? Pomegranate blossoms with baby's breath. Your arrangements get critiqued for color balance, seasonal appropriateness, and symbolic meaning. One boy creates a stunning design that accidentally mimics funeral wreaths. He's beaten so severely he can't sit for a week. By your 6th month, the training has worn grooves into your soul. You wake knowing exactly how many steps from your cell to the morning assembly point. Your hands automatically form the correct position for receiving Imperial edicts you'll probably never actually hear. The honorific language flows easier now, though you still stumble over the most elaborate forms. Some nights you dream in poetry, your sleeping mind composing verses about crane flights and moonlit pavilions. Other nights you dream of home, of the weight between your legs that's now preserved in wine, waiting to be buried with your eventual corpse. Those mornings are the hardest, when you remember what you've traded for regular meals and a chance to die somewhere more elegant than a drought-stricken field. The assignment paper feels heavier than the bronze bells that wake you each morning. 6 Princes household, Supervisor Chen announces without emotion. 3rd rank concubine, you leave tomorrow. Your stomach drops. The 6th prince has a reputation even among the training eunuchs. He goes through concubines like seasonal fruit, discarding them when they bore or displease him. Little Rat squeezes your shoulder that night. At least it's not the 4th prince, he whispers. His concubines sometimes return missing fingers or small comfort as you pack your few belongings, including that leather pouch you still can't bring yourself to open. The 6th prince's compound sits in the western section of the Forbidden City, smaller than the Crown Prince's palace, but still grand enough to house your entire village twice over. The head eunuch, a skeletal man called Butterfly Wu, inspects you like livestock at market. Passable, he declares, circling you slowly. The prince prefers them fresh and nervous. You'll do. He assigns you quarters with 2 other concubines, both eunuchs who've survived here for over a year. They eye you with a mixture of pity and relief. Fresh meat means the prince's attention shifts away from them, at least temporarily. Your preparation for the first night takes 4 hours. The senior concubines bathe you in water scented with orange blossoms, scrubbing until your skin turns pink. They oil your body with expensive unguents that make you smell like a garden in full bloom. The cosmetics are applied with extra care. The prince likes his concubines to look young, almost childlike. They dress you in silk so thin it's barely there, with strategic ribbons that will come undone at a touch. Don't speak unless he asks direct questions. One concubine advises while adjusting your hair, and whatever you do, don't mention his lazy eye. The prince's bedchamber overwhelms your senses. Incense thick enough to chew. Silk sheets that probably cost more than your family's farm. Artwork depicting acts you've only practiced on wooden models. The prince himself reclines on his bed, already half drunk on imported wine. He's younger than you expected, maybe 25, with soft features running to fat. His left eye does indeed drift outward, making it hard to know where he's looking. "Come here, little rabbit," he slurs, patting the bed beside him. Your training kicks in as you glide forward, keeping your eyes downcast, your movements deliberately graceful despite your terror. What happens next combines everything you've learned with nothing that prepared you for reality. The prince is rough, impatient, treating your body like a toy designed for his amusement. You employ every technique from training, the sounds of false pleasure, the practice positions, the muscle control that prevents you from tensing when it hurts. He seems pleased by your apparent enthusiasm, not recognizing it as performance. When he finally finishes and dismisses you with a wave, you bow deeply and back out of the room. never turning your back on him as protocol demands. In the corridor outside, your legs give out. A senior concubine finds you there, blood seeping through your thin silks. First night is always worst, he says, helping you to the bathing chambers. You survived, that's what matters. He shows you how to clean yourself properly, how to apply healing salves to tears that will become familiar. The prince has moods. He explains while you soak in warm water. Learn to read them. When he drinks the green bottle wine, he wants violence. The clear wine means he might even be gentle. Never refuse him anything, no matter how much it hurts or disgusts you. Your second summons comes 3 nights later. This time you know to prepare yourself internally, using oils and implements to ease what's coming. The prince seems delighted by your return, calling you his new favorite toy. He makes you perform the sleeve dance you learned in training while he touches himself, critiquing your form between gulps of wine. When he tires of watching, he uses you again, this time making you maintain difficult positions while he takes his pleasure. Your muscles scream, but you hold steady, knowing that dropping position means punishment. The other concubines teach you survival tricks between summons. How to tell which servants report directly to the prince versus those who might be bribed for information. Where to obtain the imported healing creams that actually work versus the cheaper versions that just mask pain. Which of the prince's other entertainments, gambling, hunting, calligraphy, affect his bedroom moods? When he loses at dice, he gets violent, warns Jade Lotus, a feminine eunuch who's lasted 3 years through careful study of the prince's patterns. Hide if you can, claim illness. The bruises aren't worth whatever gifts he gives afterward. Gifts do come. Guilt offerings after particularly brutal nights. Jade hairpins, silk robes, small pouches of silver coins. You're allowed to keep some, though the head eunuch takes his cut of everything. The money means nothing compared to what you endure earning it. Some nights, the prince wants poetry, making you compose verses about his magnificence while he does things that make concentration impossible. Other nights, he desires music, forcing you to play pipa while tears stream down your carefully painted face. The worst nights are when he's truly drunk and forgets you're human, using you in ways that leave you bleeding for days. Palace gossip filters through the concubine quarters like incense smoke. The emperor, you learn, knows about his 6 sons' proclivities, but considers them harmless compared to his other sons' vices. The 4th prince tortures servants. The 5th prince bankrupts the treasury with his gambling. The 3rd prince plots against the crown prince. In this context, the 6th prince's bedroom brutalities seem almost quaint. We're lucky, Jade Lotus says one morning while helping you cover bruises with powder. At least our prince doesn't involve weapons like some do. Your status as favorite lasts 2 months before the prince acquires a new toy. A beautiful boy fresh from the cutting house, with features delicate as porcelain. You feel relief mixed with anxiety as the prince's attention shifts. Being favorite meant regular summons and regular pain, but also regular gifts and a certain protection from other household politics. Now you're just another aging concubine in a palace full of them, competing for attention you don't actually want, but need to survive. The pecking order among concubines resembles the barnyard hierarchies you knew growing up, only with silk and perfume instead of feathers and dirt. New favorites torment older ones. Older ones sabotage newer ones. Everyone schemes for the prince's attention while secretly praying he'll fixate on someone else. You learn to navigate these currents, forming cautious alliances with concubines who've survived longest down. They teach you the real skills, how to fake illness convincingly, how to make yourself temporarily less attractive without obvious self-harm. How to redirect the prince's attention to rivals when he's in one of his darker moods. The game changes when you realize the prince's personal secretary, a mid-ranking eunuch named Scholar Fang, watches you during morning audiences. Not with sexual interest. That particular burden ended with his castration 40 years ago, but with calculating assessment. After one particularly graceful tea service, where you prevented a diplomatic incident by smoothly intercepting a cup meant for a minister the prince currently despises, Scholar Fang approaches. You have a quick mind under all that paint, he observes. Wasted in the bedchamber. How well do you read? Your heart pounds as you admit to literacy beyond what most concubines possess. This conversation could mean elevation or elimination. Scholar Fang begins requesting you for special services that have nothing to do with your usual duties. You help organize the prince's correspondence. Your farm-bred honesty useful for flagging letters that smell of deception. Your calligraphy might be mediocre, but your memory for faces and names proves exceptional. Soon you're attending meetings disguised as decoration, pouring wine while memorizing which officials argue for which policies. The prince doesn't notice. Why would he pay attention to furniture that happens to breathe? But Scholar Fang notices everything, especially how certain ministers relax around you, assuming beauty equals stupidity. Your fellow concubines view this development with mixed reactions. Some see opportunity. If you rise, you might pull them up too. Others smell threat, worried you'll expose their small corruptions and survival schemes. Jade Lotus becomes your most valuable ally, teaching you the delicate art of gathering information through bedroom whispers. Men say things during pleasure they'd never speak in council. He explains. Learn to ask questions that don't sound like questions. Compliment their cleverness while they reveal their plans. Make them feel brilliant for explaining things to your simple mind. The real education comes from watching Scholar Fang navigate palace politics. He serves the sixth prince faithfully while maintaining connections throughout the imperial bureaucracy. You observe how he bows just deeply enough to show respect without civility, how his gifts to other departments always arrive at precisely the right moment. Power isn't taken. He tells you one evening while reviewing accounts. It's accumulated drop by drop, like water wearing down stone. Each favor owed, each secret learned, each alliance formed. These are your true treasures. Your information gathering bears fruit during a crisis involving grain allocations. Through pillow talk with a minor official, you learn that several granaries reported as full actually stand empty, their contents sold by corrupt managers. Scholar Fang uses this knowledge to position the sixth prince as a reformer, exposing the corruption while carefully avoiding implication of higher-ranking princes who definitely knew. The emperor himself commends his 6 sons' diligence. The prince, drunk on praise and wine, rewards his household generously. You receive a jade pendant worth a year's salary. But more importantly, Scholar Fang formally requests you as his assistant. This new position requires delicate balance. You still belong to the prince's bedchamber, still must answer his summons, still endure what that entails. But now you also spend days in Scholar Fang's office, learning the intricate web of palace administration, who controls which budgets, which departments feast while others starve, how to read the emperor's moods through his choice of ink colors on official documents. Your head spins with names, ranks, and relationships more complex than any dance routine. Historians still debate whether eunuch administrators held real power or merely reflected their master's will. But from inside the system, the authority feels tangible as silk. The bedroom intelligence network expands under your careful cultivation, You identify which concubines have the best ears and loosest-lipped clients, creating an informal spy ring through shared cosmetics and whispered gossip. Information becomes currency. You trade warnings about the prince's moods for details about other princes' plans. When a concubine mentions that the third prince's military advisor drinks himself stupid every night, you file it away. When another reports the crown prince's wife desperately seeking fertility treatments, you ensure Scholar Fang knows within hours. Your growing influence doesn't go unnoticed. Butterfly Wu, the skeletal head eunuch who dismissed you as passable, now treats you with wary respect. He recognizes a potential successor when he sees one, though you're careful to defer to his authority publicly. Other departments begin sending gifts, nothing too obvious. Just small tokens acknowledging your emerging position. A better grade of ink from the Ministry of Rites. Premium tea from the Imperial kitchen. Medicine for your persistent urinary infections from the palace physicians. Each gift carries obligations you carefully track in mental ledgers. The prince's violence hasn't decreased, but your response has evolved. Now when he summons you, you arrive prepared with intelligence that improves his standing. "My lord," you might murmur while he undresses you. Your brilliant handling of the grain crisis has the third prince quite anxious. His supporters whisper about it constantly. The prince preens at such reports, sometimes forgetting to be brutal in his excitement to hear more. You've learned to portion out information like expensive wine, ensuring you always have something new to distract him with. One night, the prince arrives at his chambers to find you already there, playing pipa in the moonlight, a scene carefully orchestrated for maximum effect. The melody is one his late mother loved, a fact you learn through careful questioning of elderly servants. His eyes actually tear up as childhood memories surface. That night, for the first time, he's almost gentle, talking about his mother while you stroke his hair. It's manipulation of the highest order, but it keeps you unbruised for a week afterward. Scholar Fang nods approvingly when you report this breakthrough in managing the prince's moods. The art of selective information sharing becomes your specialty. When the Ministry of Revenue plans to audit princely households, you ensure the sixth prince knows in time to clean his accounts. When the emperor expresses irritation about princes who neglect filial duties, you arrange for the prince to suddenly remember his mother's death anniversary with elaborate ceremonies. Each successful intervention increases your value while binding the prince more closely to your network. He begins to see you not just as a toy, but as a lucky charm, a beautiful talisman that somehow makes his life smoother. Other princes' households notice the sixth prince's rising fortune. Spies multiply like summer mosquitoes, some disguised as servants, others as fellow concubines gifted between princes. You identify most through careful observation. Real concubines move with the broken grace of the repeatedly used, while spies maintain a certain untouched quality despite their act. You feed these spies careful mixtures of truth and misdirection, using them to send messages to their masters while protecting your own prince's genuine secrets. Your greatest coup comes through a dying concubine's final confession. The old eunuch, ravaged by the lead poisoning that eventually claims all who use white face powder, whispers about a document he once saw, evidence that the second prince, dead these 5 years, had actually been murdered by his own household. The implications stagger you. Such information could destroy dynasties or, properly used, secure your position for life. You hold this secret close, sharing it only with Scholar Fang, who goes pale beneath his own powder. This knowledge is a blade that cuts both ways, he warns. Use it wrongly and we all burn. The summons arrives on silk so fine it feels like captured moonlight between your fingers. The Emperor's personal seal marks the bottom, the coiled dragon that makes even princes tremble. Your hands shake as you read the formal language requesting your presence at the evening entertainment. Not the 6 princes' presence, specifically yours by name. Scholar Fang finds you still staring at the document an hour later. His face goes through several expressions before settling on resignation mixed with pride. So, he says quietly, the dragon has noticed the rabbit. Remember everything I taught you. At this level, one wrong breath means death. Preparation for an Imperial audience requires assistance from departments that normally ignore 6th-ranked concubines. The Imperial wardrobe sends robes you couldn't afford with 10 years accumulated gifts. Silk so pure it seems to glow, embroidered with golden threads that catch light like trapped stars. The palace physicians provide special tonics to ensure your skin radiates health, your breath stays sweet, your energy doesn't flag during what could be hours of performance. Even your fingernails get attention from specialists who paint tiny scenes of paradise on each one. You've become a masterpiece constructed by a dozen artists. The Emperor's private entertainment hall makes the 6 princes' chambers look like a peasant's hovel. Columns of jade support a ceiling painted with 10,000 birds in flight. The floor reflects like still water, polished to supernatural perfection. Other entertainers already present include the Empire's finest musicians, dancers, and poets. Yet somehow the Emperor's eyes find you immediately. He's older than you expected, perhaps 60, with a face that manages to be both kindly and terrifying. When he smiles, you understand why men kill themselves rather than disappoint him. Ah, the Emperor says, his voice carrying despite its softness. The 6 princes' clever little songbird. We have heard interesting things about you. The royal we makes your knees weak, but training keeps you upright. You perform the kowtow flawlessly, forehead touching floor 9 times in perfect rhythm. Your Majesty honors this worthless servant beyond measure. You respond in the highest court language, each syllable crystalline. The Emperor laughs, a sound like distant thunder. Rise. Tonight you will demonstrate these talents that make our 6 sons suddenly competent at administration. The test begins immediately. The Emperor commands you to compose a poem on the spot about autumn rain, but with each line containing a hidden reference to military strategy. Your mind races as you speak, weaving metaphors about droplets gathering into floods that overwhelm unprepared earth. He nods approvingly, then demands you play pipa while explaining the grain distribution problems plaguing the northern provinces. Somehow, you manage both, your fingers finding melodies that underscore the harsh realities of drought and corruption you describe. Each challenge grows more complex, testing not just your skills, but your ability to think while performing. Other courtiers watch with expressions ranging from amazement to envy. You recognize several faces from Scholar Fang's lessons. The Minister of War who collects rare orchids, the Chief Astrologer who secretly funds Buddhist temples, the head of the Imperial Guard whose son loves gambling more than life. The Emperor notices where your eyes linger. You see much for one so decorative, he observes. Tell us, what do you see when you look at our Minister of Revenue? The minister in question freezes like a rabbit sensing a hawk. You must answer carefully. Too honest means making powerful enemies. Too flattering means the Emperor knows you're useless. This servant sees a man who sleeps poorly. You say after a calculated pause, the burden of counting the realm's wealth while knowing every coin's importance weighs upon his dreams. His fingernails are bitten to the quick, a habit that worsens during harvest tax season. Yet his robes remain immaculate and his posture straight, suggesting a man who places duty above personal comfort. The emperor's eyes glitter with amusement, while the Minister of Revenue looks like he might faint. Your observations are accurate, but not damaging, showcasing perception without revealing dangerous secrets. Hours pass in this elaborate dance of entertainment and evaluation. You sing songs that make hardened generals dab at their eyes, tell riddles that force the court's greatest minds to admit defeat, perform dances that seem to capture wind itself in silk sleeves. Through it all, the emperor watches with an expression you can't decipher. When he finally dismisses the other entertainers, keeping only you and a handful of his most trusted advisors, your heart attempts to escape through your throat. The sixth prince does not deserve such a treasure, the emperor declares, making your blood freeze. We shall reassign you to our personal household. The sixth prince will be compensated appropriately. Just like that, your world transforms. The advisors murmur congratulations that sound like condolences. You understand why. The emperor's attention is the sun itself. It nurtures growth, but just as easily burns everything to ash. You perform another kowtow, accepting this elevation that feels like falling from an infinite height. The walk back to the sixth prince's compound passes in a daze. By the time you arrive, everyone already knows. News travels faster than fire in the Forbidden City. The prince waits in his chambers, drunk enough to be dangerous, but not so drunk he's lost comprehension. Stealing you away, he slurs, rage and self-pity warring on his fleshy face. My own father, stealing my favorite toy. For a moment you think he might attack you, claim what he can before you're removed from his reach. But Scholar Fang appears with perfect timing, reminding the prince of the generous compensation already deposited in his accounts. Your fellow concubines react with shock that quickly transforms to calculation. Association with an imperial concubine brings reflected glory. Suddenly, everyone remembers small kindnesses they showed you, advice they offered, times they protected you from the prince's worst impulses. Only Jade Lotus speaks truthfully, pulling you aside for a whispered conference. The emperor collects beautiful things, he warns, but he's also pragmatic. When beauty fades or bores him, he discards without sentiment. You must be more than decorative. You must become indispensable. Butterfly Wu personally oversees your packing, ensuring nothing that belongs to the sixth prince's household leaves with you. Your little leather pouch gets transferred to a new silk container bearing the imperial seal. Even your severed parts now belong to the emperor. The irony isn't lost on you. From farm to prince's toy to imperial possession, each elevation taking you further from anything resembling autonomy. Yet what choice exists? Refusing the emperor's favor means death at best, your entire family's execution at worst. Scholar Fang visits on your last night, bringing advice disguised as farewell gifts. A book of poetry contains margin notes about which subjects the emperor truly enjoys versus those he pretends to appreciate. A box of premium ink includes a list of officials who can be trusted versus those who smile while sharpening knives. His final gift is most precious, a simple wooden counting frame like merchants use. But each bead represents a different palace faction, their positions showing current alliances. Remember, he says, embracing you with unexpected emotion. You survived our prince through intelligence, not just beauty. The emperor values both but respects only the former. The imperial concubine quarters occupy a different universe from the prince's compounds. Here, luxury reaches levels that mock your previous understanding of wealth. Your assigned chambers include a receiving room, private bath, study, and bedchamber larger than your childhood home. Servants appear from nowhere, eunuchs and maids who exist solely to maintain your comfort, the head of your household staff. An ancient eunuch named Venerable Chu walks you through amenities that bewilder your farm-bred sensibilities. Hot water flows from silver taps. Floors heated by underground furnaces keep bare feet warm even in winter. The privy doesn't stink. Some miracle of engineering whisks waste away to places unknown. Your wardrobe alone requires 2 dedicated servants to maintain. Robes for every possible occasion, each worth more than your village's annual harvest. Morning robes, afternoon robes, informal tea robes, formal dinner robes, entertainment robes, sleeping robes that feel like wearing clouds. The jewelry allocated to your use could fund a small army. Jade hairpins, gold earrings, pearl necklaces, gem-encrusted belt ornaments. You're especially fascinated by a mechanical phoenix pin that slowly flaps its wings, powered by some clockwork mystery. The previous owner died wearing this. Venerable Chu mentions casually, "Poisoned by a rival. We've had it thoroughly cleaned." The other Imperial concubines size you up immediately, unlike the 6th prince's household where you competed with a dozen others. Here, you swim among hundreds of sharks, so the empress and official wives occupy their own palaces, but the concubine quarters house everyone from fresh beauties like yourself to ancient favorites who've outlasted multiple emperors. The hierarchy proves dizzying, ranks within ranks, some based on official titles, others on current favor, still others on accumulated influence. You identify the major players quickly. Lady Phoenix, a female concubine who's produced 2 princes. Master Jade, a eunuch who controls the entertainment schedule. Sister Moon, whose beauty at 50 still stops conversations. Your first Imperial summons comes after 3 days of settling in. The preparation makes your previous elaborate efforts look slovenly. A team of specialists tends to every inch of your body. They pluck hairlines to create perfect shapes, polish skin until it gleams like marble, paint face and body in patterns designed to enhance beauty under lamplight. The Emperor prefers subtle scents, so they layer fragrances with mathematical precision. First the bath oils, then body cream, then perfume applied to specific pulse points. Your hair gets sculpted into an architecture of loops and waves, held by pins worth more than people. The final robes are midnight blue silk embroidered with silver stars, chosen because the Emperor currently favors celestial themes. The Emperor's private chambers exist beyond opulent. They achieve a simplicity that only infinite wealth can purchase. Everything perfectly placed, nothing excessive. Each object a masterpiece that doesn't scream its value. He receives you in his study, dressed in plain robes that probably cost more than ceremonial dragon suits. Up close, you notice details missed during the public performance. The calculating intelligence behind grandfatherly warmth, the way his fingers never stop moving, as if counting invisible abacus beads. How his eyes catalogue everything while seeming to look at nothing. "Play for me," he commands simply, gesturing to a peeper that makes your previous instruments look like toys. The strings are silk so fine they're nearly invisible, the body carved from wood that rings like bronze when touched. You perform a classical piece, letting muscle memory guide while your mind races to understand what he really wants. The Emperor listens with eyes closed, occasionally humming along. When you finish, he nods once. "Adequate. Now tell me what you really think of the Northern grain situation." This becomes your pattern with the Emperor, performance wrapped around intelligence gathering. He uses you differently than the sixth prince did. Yes, there are nights when he requires physical service, but he's more interested in your mind than your altered body. He's an old man who's outlived 3 empresses and countless concubines. Mere beauty bores him. Instead, he values your ability to synthesize information from unusual sources. You report gossip that reveals economic patterns, bedroom whispers that indicate military movements, servant complaints that highlight administrative failures. The physical aspects, when they occur, prove mercifully brief. The Emperor's age means he requires extensive assistance to achieve satisfaction, but he's unfailingly polite about it, treating you more like a medical attendant than a sexual plaything. "Forgive an old man's necessities," he often says afterward, pressing gifts into your hands as if you're doing him a favor. These encounters happen perhaps twice monthly, far less than the sixth prince's near daily demands. The rest of your time gets filled with more cerebral services, reading reports aloud while he rests his eyes, playing chess while discussing border conflicts, massaging his feet while recounting palace gossip. Your information network expands exponentially with Imperial resources. Now you can afford to place servants in other households, to bribe guards for specific intelligence, to purchase secrets from struggling officials. Venerable Chu proves invaluable, his decades of service providing institutional knowledge about every skeleton in every closet. Through him, you learn which concubines used to be men, which princes aren't the emperor's blood, which ministers embezzle, and which merely accept reasonable bribes. Information becomes your armor against the constant assassination attempts that come with Imperial favor. The first poisoning attempt arrives disguised as a gift of rare tea from an anonymous admirer. Your food taster, yes, you have one now, dies convulsing before the cup reaches your lips. The second attempt involves a seamstress who tries to embed poisoned needles in your robes. The third comes from your own household, a maid bribed to add mercury to your face powder. Each failed assassination increases your paranoia and your value. The Emperor seems pleased by the attempts, viewing them as proof of your importance. "If no one wants you dead," he observes, "you're not worth keeping alive." Sister Moon becomes an unexpected ally after you expose a plot against her favorite nephew. She invites you for tea, real tea, carefully tested, and shares wisdom accumulated over 30 years as an Imperial concubine. "Beauty fades," she says, gesturing to her still lovely but definitely aging face. "Power shifts, but secrets compound like interest if properly managed." She teaches you the deeper games, how to plant information that only bears fruit years later, how to cultivate protégés who don't know they're yours, how to make enemies destroy each other while you watch from silk-cushioned safety. The Emperor's health fluctuates, each illness sending ripples of anxiety through the palace. During one severe bout, he summons you to his sickbed, dismissing even his most trusted advisors. "I may die soon," he whispers, breath rattling. "My sons circle like vultures. Tell me, little songbird, which one would destroy the empire fastest?" You name the third prince without hesitation. His military ambitions would bankrupt the treasury within years. The Emperor laughs, coughing blood into silk handkerchiefs. "Clever bird. Now tell me which would preserve it best." This question requires more thought, but eventually you suggest the overlooked seventh prince, whose boring competence masks genuine ability. When the Emperor recovers, your status shifts subtly but significantly. Courtiers who previously acknowledged you with minimal politeness now bow deeply. Your intelligence reports get copied directly to the Emperor's personal secretaries. Most tellingly, you're assigned a taster for your taster, someone to test the food before it reaches the person who tests it, before it reaches you. The layers of paranoia would be funny if people weren't genuinely dying to reach you. You've become not just a favored concubine, but a recognized power within the palace structure. The tea ceremony proceeds with perfect choreography until your newest taster starts foaming at the mouth. She drops like a puppet with severed strings, her body convulsing on priceless carpets while you set down your untouched cup with steady hands. This makes the 7th attempt this month. Someone desperately wants you dead. Venerable Chu directs servants to remove the body with practiced efficiency, while you mentally catalogue who knew about today's gathering. The guest list included Lady Crimson Orchid, whose son just lost a promotion based on your intelligence reports, and Master Silver Bell, whose smuggling operation you recently exposed. Either could afford exotic poisons. Your security measures now resemble those of a paranoid prince. Every meal gets tested 3 times. Your chambers are searched for hidden weapons daily. Guards shadow you everywhere, even to the privy. The Emperor finds your survival amusing, occasionally asking for updates on assassination attempts like their entertainment. 17 plots in 3 months. He muses during one evening report. My first wife only faced 12 in her entire life. You inspire such passion, little songbird. His amusement doesn't extend to providing better protection. In his mind, staying alive is your test of worthiness. The poisoners grow creative as simple methods fail. One attempt involves powder blown through bamboo tubes during a theatrical performance. Another uses contact poison painted on your peeper strings. Only your habit of wearing silk gloves while practicing saves you. The closest call comes through infected fabric in new robes. A slow-acting poison that would have killed over weeks if your paranoid inspection hadn't revealed strange discoloration in the threads. Each survival increases your reputation for supernatural luck, which some interpret as divine favor and others as evidence of dark sorcery. Sister Moon teaches you offensive strategies between defensive ones. A cobra strikes before it's stepped on. She advises while demonstrating how to hide poison needles in hair ornaments. You learn to identify 16 different toxins by smell, to spot the subtle signs of bribed servants, to read the micro-expressions that precede violence. More importantly, you learn to strike back obliquely. When Lady Crimson Orchid's son suffers a tragic accident involving tainted wine meant for someone else entirely, everyone understands the message. The assassination attempts decrease but don't stop. Now they just come from more careful planners. Your food tasting staff expands to 12 people working in shifts. The protocol becomes elaborate beyond reason. Each ingredient tested at source, during preparation, after cooking, and before serving. Your meals arrive cold more often than not, flavors muddled by the delay. You develop a taste for simple foods that show tampering easily: plain rice, clear broths, fresh fruit you peel yourself. The Emperor occasionally invites you to share his meals, knowing his food supply is the most protected in the Empire. These dinners become strange oases where you can eat without fear, though you still find yourself sniffing each bite from habit. The psychological warfare proves worse than physical attempts. You wake to find funeral clothes laid out instead of court robes, a message that someone with access to your chambers wants you contemplating death. Your favorite peeper gets replaced with an identical one strung with human hair, a violation that makes your skin crawl. Letters arrive written in what looks like blood. describing your future torture in loving detail. One morning, every mirror in your chambers is cracked in patterns that form the character for death. These attacks require inside assistance, meaning your own household harbors traitors. Venerable Chu initiates a purge with your blessing. Servants disappear for questioning, some returning shaken but cleared, others vanishing permanently. You hate the necessity, but understand survival requires harsh choices. A young maid you genuinely liked confesses under pressure. Her family held hostage by unknown parties who demanded information about your routines. You arrange their rescue and her reassignment to a provincial household, showing mercy that enhances your reputation while removing a compromised asset. The message spreads. You can be ruthless, but prefer reason. Master Jade proves behind several attempts, his control over entertainment scheduling providing opportunities to place assassins. Your counterstrike comes through bureaucracy rather than blades. You arrange an audit of his department's finances, knowing he's skimmed for decades. When irregularities surface, you ensure the Emperor hears about them from multiple sources simultaneously. Master Jade's execution for embezzlement sends ripples through the palace. You've demonstrated that official channels can be as deadly as poison when properly wielded. The creative poisoning attempts continue evolving. Someone introduces toxins through your incense burner, requiring you to switch to unscented air. Another attempt involves poisoned ink that would have killed through skin absorption if you hadn't noticed the unusual sheen. Your cosmetics get contaminated so frequently that you start mixing your own. Learning chemistry from the palace physicians who find your survival professionally interesting. One doctor jokes that you've been exposed to so many sublethal doses, you're probably developing immunity to half the palace's poison supply. Your allies prove as valuable as your paranoia. Sister Moon's network alerts you to threats before they materialize. Scholar Fang, still serving the Sixth Prince, passes warnings through carefully coded letters. Even some rivals provide information, understanding that your death might destabilize balances they depend on. The Emperor's physician secretly supplies antidotes to common poisons, viewing your continued survival as an interesting experiment. You cultivate these relationships carefully, knowing today's ally might be tomorrow's assassin, but needing the protection overlapping interests provide. A breakthrough comes when you capture a poisoner alive, a kitchen servant who added powdered jade to your soup, unaware that you'd stopped eating anything green-tinted weeks ago. Under interrogation, she reveals a conspiracy involving 3 concubines, 2 princes, and a minister who all want you dead for different reasons. Rather than expose them directly, you orchestrate situations where they suspect each other. The resulting paranoia tears their alliance apart without your direct involvement. 2 concubines poison each other at the same banquet. The minister flees to the provinces, and the princes retreat to their compounds, suddenly wary of their own allies. The Emperor summons you after this self-destructing conspiracy, his eyes twinkling with genuine pleasure. "Exquisite work," he pronounces. "You've learned to make your enemies do your killing. This deserves reward." He promotes you 2 ranks in the concubine hierarchy and grants you access to the Imperial Library, a privilege usually reserved for scholars, more valuable than rank or knowledge. He assigns you a permanent squad of his personal guards. Their presence won't stop all attempts, but it signals his investment in your survival, discouraging casual assassins. Despite the constant danger, or perhaps because of it, you develop a dark sense of humor about your situation. You start a private journal cataloging the most creative murder attempts, rating them for originality and execution. The exploding hairpin ranks high for innovation, but low for practicality. The trained venomous butterflies score points for aesthetics, but fail on reliability. They kept landing on the wrong people. Your favorite remains the assassin who tried to strangle you with silk scarves during a dance, turning art into weapon. You survived by improvising the scarf into a rope and hanging him with his own tools. Power flows through the palace like water through irrigation channels, invisible but essential, following paths carved by generations of ambition. You've learned to read these currents, to spot where they pool and where they run dry. Your morning intelligence briefings now rival those of minor ministers. Venerable Chu presents reports from your network of servants, merchants, and strategically placed prostitutes while you sip carefully tested tea. Today's news includes grain shortages in the south, a general's secret correspondence with northern barbarians, and the Crown Prince's wife's third miscarriage. Information worth its weight in gold if properly leveraged. The Emperor increasingly relies on your unofficial counsel, though always framed as pillow talk or entertainment. During intimate moments when his guard drops, you plant seeds of policy that bloom days later as imperial edicts. When you mention how beautiful the spring festivals were in your childhood village before the new taxes made them impossible, he coincidentally reforms the festival tax structure. Your observation about soldiers' widows begging outside the palace gates leads to new pension provisions. He knows what you're doing. Manipulation isn't manipulation when both parties acknowledge it, but appreciates the plausible deniability your beauty provides. Your influence over palace appointments becomes an open secret. When the position of Deputy Minister of Waterworks opens, 3 candidates vie for your favor. One sends rare orchids, another offers intelligence about your enemies. The third simply prostrates himself during a chance encounter, begging for support. You choose the second. Information always trumps flowers, and whisper his virtues to the Emperor during a massage. The appointment goes through within days. The new deputy minister understands his debt, becoming another thread in your ever-expanding web. Female concubines increasingly seek your alliance, recognizing that you wield power they can access through association. Lady Phoenix, mother of 2 princes, proposes a formal partnership over tea. You have the Emperor's ear, she states plainly. I have sons who need positions. Together, we could shape the next generation of leadership. You agree carefully, knowing her maternal ambitions make her predictable, a useful quality in allies. Through your influence, her elder son receives command of a prestigious garrison, while the younger gains appointment to the Ministry of Rights. In exchange, her network of palace mothers feeds you information about princely weaknesses and ambitions. The art of indirect confrontation becomes your specialty. When the Minister of War blocks your preferred candidate for Northern Commander, you don't attack directly. Instead, you arrange for his favorite courtesan to receive detailed information about his wife's family's smuggling operations. The courtesan, seeing opportunity, blackmails the minister for jewelry and position. Within a month, he's too distracted fighting personal scandals to oppose your military appointments. The Northern commander you supported remembers who cleared his path, adding military intelligence to your information streams. Your study transforms into an unofficial ministry where subtle policies get shaped. Maps cover every wall, marked with colored pins representing allies, enemies, and neutral parties across the empire. You track grain prices, troop movements, and barbarian raids with the attention once reserved for memorizing poetry. Scholar Fang visits monthly, ostensibly delivering gifts from the 6th prince, but actually providing tutorials in statecraft. You've transcended concubinage, he observes during one lesson. You're becoming a shadow minister, perhaps shadow empress. Be careful, shadows vanish when lights shine too bright. The emperor's health deteriorates subtly but steadily. His bedroom summons become requests for strategic advice rather than physical comfort. One night, he asks you to read military dispatches aloud, claiming his eyes tire easily. As you detail border skirmishes and supply problems, you realize he's testing your understanding, not his vision. When you correctly identify which reports contain lies based on inconsistent details, he nods approvingly. My sons will tear the empire apart when I die, he says matter-of-factly, unless someone guides them. Someone they underestimate. You begin cultivating relationships with key princes, carefully avoiding romantic entanglements while positioning yourself as indispensable advisor. The Crown Prince receives your insights on managing court factions. The Third Prince benefits from your warnings about treacherous generals. The Seventh Prince, still your secret favorite for succession, gains introductions to competent administrators you've identified. Each prince believes he's your preferred candidate, none realizing you're hedging bets across the board. Historians still argue whether such multi-sided loyalty constitutes betrayal or survival wisdom. Your household becomes a power center rivaling minor ministries. Venerable Chu manages a staff of nearly 100, each selected for loyalty and competence. Your personal guard includes former Imperial soldiers who chose service to you over comfortable retirement. The information network spans from palace kitchens to frontier garrisons, flowing through merchants, prostitutes, monks, and servants. You maintain this apparatus through careful mixture of rewards and intimidation, generous to the loyal, ruthless to betrayers, fair to those who serve competently without exceptional dedication. The Empress Dowager, mother of the emperor and grandmother of princes, summons you for an unprecedented private audience. At 90, she resembles carved jade, beautiful, cold, and harder than stone. You remind me of myself, she says, studying you with eyes that have watched 3 emperors rise and fall, ambitious beyond your station, clever enough to hide it, ruthless enough to survive. I should have you killed. Your heart stops, but training keeps your face serene. She continues, instead, I'll teach you the final lesson. Power isn't taken or given. It's inherited by those who position themselves correctly when bodies fall. This meeting initiates your strangest education yet. The Empress Dowager shares secrets of feminine power in a masculine system, how to make men believe ideas are theirs, how to build networks that survive regime changes, how to accumulate wealth without appearing greedy. She teaches through historical examples, describing how previous Empress Dowagers ruled through sons and grandsons, their official powerlessness becoming actual omnipotence. Men fight for thrones, she explains. Women control who sits on them. Remember this when my son joins his ancestors. Your treasury swells through careful investment and strategic corruption. Officials seeking favor pay handsomely for introductions. Merchants granted exclusive palace contracts share profits. Military suppliers understand that quality goods ensure continued business, while substandard materials result in fatal accidents. You funnel this wealth into multiple channels, some supporting your network, some hidden in provincial banks, some invested in foreign trade that can't be confiscated by future regimes. Financial independence means survival options if palace politics turn lethal. The balance of terror you maintain with other powerful concubines resembles international diplomacy. Mutual assassination attempts have proven expensive and ineffective, leading to informal treaties. You control certain appointments. Sister Moon manages cultural affairs. Lady Phoenix influences military positions through her sons. Violation of these spheres brings swift retaliation, but cooperation yields mutual benefits. Even your enemies prefer predictable hostility to chaotic warfare. The palace achieves strange stability through overlapping conspiracies cancelling each other out. A crisis arrives when documents surface suggesting the crown prince isn't the emperor's blood son, potentially delegitimizing his succession claim. The papers appear genuine, bearing seals from the right period and witness marks from deceased officials. You recognize the plot's elegance immediately. Someone seeks civil war through paperwork rather than poison. Your investigation reveals the third prince's involvement, his military ambitions requiring chaos to justify seizing power. Rather than expose him directly, you arrange for the forger to die publicly while confessing the fraud, discrediting the documents without naming sponsors. The Crown Prince owes his legitimacy to your intervention, though he'll never know it. The third prince retreats. Understanding your message, you could have destroyed him but chose warning instead. Such calculated mercy builds more reliable alliances than fear alone. The new arrival glides into the palace like a pearl dropping into still water, sending ripples through every carefully balanced alliance. Ming Blossom, barely 16, freshly cut, with beauty that makes even jaded eunuchs pause mid-step. His features achieve that perfect androgyny that drives emperors to madness. Masculine enough to provide variety, feminine enough to shame actual women. When he performs his debut dance at the autumn banquet, sleeves flowing like liquid moonlight, you watch the emperor's eyes fix with an intensity you haven't seen in years. Your wine cup cracks in your grip, hairline fractures spreading like your sudden fear. Within a week, Ming Blossom occupies chambers adjacent to the emperor's private quarters, a proximity you achieved only after 2 years of service. The boy accepts this elevation with practiced humility that doesn't quite hide calculating eyes. You recognize the type immediately, trained from childhood for this moment, probably sold to specialists who shaped him specifically for imperial tastes. His every gesture displays studied perfection, from the angle of his wrist while pouring tea to the precise rhythm of his breathing during intimate moments. Someone invested heavily in this weapon aimed at your position. Your first meeting occurs in the palace gardens, orchestrated to appear accidental. Ming Blossom tends chrysanthemums with delicate attention, humming a melody from your home province. No coincidence, certainly. Senior sister. He greets you, using the formal address between concubines while managing to make it sound slightly mocking. Your reputation precedes you. They say you've survived more assassination attempts than any 3 concubines combined. His smile could melt winter frost. How fortunate the emperor values experience alongside beauty. The insult lands precisely. Experience means age in palace vocabulary. You're 35 now, ancient by concubine standards despite careful maintenance. Next to Ming Blossom's dewy youth, your practiced elegance shows its edges, but you've survived too much to crumble at obvious provocation. Indeed, you reply smoothly, though I've found wisdom often outlasts beauty. The emperor appreciates both, but only one improves with age. Your own smile could freeze blood. I look forward to watching your education, little brother. The palace teaches harsh lessons to pretty flowers. Intelligence gathering about Ming Blossom proves frustratingly difficult. His background documentation appears flawless, too flawless, suggesting professional fabrication. The cutting house that supposedly trained him burned down conveniently after his departure, taking records with it. His sponsor remains anonymous. Payments made through intermediaries who've since vanished or died. Even your most reliable sources provide contradictory information. The boy's a ghost wrapped in silk and perfume, his past as carefully constructed as his present persona. The Emperor's infatuation follows predictable patterns amplified by senility's approach. He summons Ming Blossom nightly, sometimes forgetting he's already called for him and sending redundant messengers. Gifts flow like water, jewels that could buy villages, robes that blind with their magnificence, titles that elevate the boy faster than tradition allows. Most dangerously, the Emperor shares state secrets during pillow talk, his aged mind conflating past and present while Ming Blossom listens with those perfectly painted lips curved in sympathy. Your position erodes gradually but noticeably. Summons decrease from weekly to monthly. Your intelligence reports get redirected through intermediaries rather than delivered personally. The Emperor still values your mind but no longer pretends to desire your body, a relief tainted by the political vulnerability it creates. Courtiers who once bowed deeply now offer perfunctory nods, their respect calcifying into past tense. You're becoming what you've seen countless others become, a formerly favored concubine sliding toward irrelevance. Venerable Chu counsels patience while preparing for war. The boy burns bright but fast, he observes, watching Ming Blossom entrance the court with a sword dance that shouldn't be possible in those constraining robes. His kind always do. The question is whether you'll survive his flame. Together, you analyze patterns. Which officials suddenly support Ming Blossom? What policies shift in directions you'd opposed? Where palace resources flow toward new purposes? The picture emerging suggests sophisticated backing, possibly from princes positioning for post-succession influence. A breakthrough comes through unlikely sources. One of your laundry maids mentions offhand that Ming Blossom's underthings show unusual wear patterns, consistent with binding worn during childhood, the kind used to train flexibility in acrobatic performers. Cross-referencing with travel records reveals a famous opera troupe passed through the capital 16 years ago, their star performer dying in childbirth. The dates align too perfectly for coincidence. Ming Blossom wasn't crafted for palace service. He was born to entertainment and repurposed after castration. You test this theory by arranging a private theatrical performance featuring scenes from that opera troupe's signature pieces. Ming Blossom attends as the Emperor's companion, his composure perfect until the musicians strike opening notes of Phoenix Ascending Mountain. His fingers twitch in abbreviated movements matching the lead role's gestures, muscle memory betraying careful construction. You file this knowledge away. Understanding its value lies not in exposure, but leverage. Everyone has origins they'd prefer forgotten. The competition between you intensifies through proxy conflicts. Your preferred candidate for Palace Entertainment Director loses to Ming Blossom's selection. His suggested reforms to concubine rankings threaten structures you've spent years building. Most seriously, he begins questioning financial irregularities in departments you control, not openly accusing, but implying oversight might benefit from fresh perspectives. Each move follows classical strategy, probing for weaknesses while maintaining plausible cooperation. Sister Moon provides unexpected insight during your weekly tea. The boy's too perfect, she muses, watching Ming Blossom charm a cluster of ministers' wives. Real survivors show scars, He's unmarked as fresh paper, which means someone else bears his wounds. Her observation crystallizes suspicions. Ming Blossom serves agenda beyond personal ambition. The resources required to create and position him suggest state-level backing. Some faction prepared this weapon specifically for current circumstances. Your response requires delicacy. Direct confrontation would paint you as jealous, aging, desperate. All true but politically fatal to acknowledge. Instead, you begin documenting Ming Blossom's intelligence gathering, noting which secrets he accesses and where that information flows. The pattern reveals connections to the Seventh Prince's network, your own secret favorite for succession. The irony tastes bitter. Your carefully cultivated candidate now undermines you through this beautiful proxy. A dangerous opportunity arrives when Ming Blossom overreaches. Emboldened by favor, he suggests reforms to the palace guard that would coincidentally replace key positions with his nominees. The Emperor, increasingly forgetful, approves without recognizing how this weakens imperial security. You compile evidence showing similar changes preceded 3 historical palace coups, presenting it through the Empress Dowager rather than directly. Her influence remains absolute on security matters. The reforms die quietly. But Ming Blossom now knows you're watching, analyzing, waiting. The game transforms from competition to mutual assessment. You attend same functions, exchange perfectly courteous words, gift appropriate tokens on required occasions. Beneath surfaces polished smooth as jade, you test each other's defenses. He sends assassins, deniable ones who fail conveniently. You arrange minor scandals that tarnish his reputation without destroying it. Both of you understand this is prelude, not primary conflict. The real war waits for the Emperor's death, when today's subtle maneuvers become tomorrow's survival strategies. The mirror reflects a stranger wearing your face, a map of desperation drawn in white lead powder thick enough to crack. 42 years show despite every remedy gold can buy. The crow's feet spread like river deltas no matter how carefully you apply the egg-white masks. Your neck, that treacherous herald of age, displays rings that no amount of stretching can smooth. Next to Ming Blossom's porcelain perfection, you might as well be carved from old leather. The cosmetics that once enhanced now merely disguise. Each layer a lie that fools no one, especially not yourself. The morning ritual grows more elaborate as nature demands heavier artillery. First, the pearl powder base mixed with mercury. You know it's poison, but vanity outweighs longevity now. Then rouge crafted from crushed beetles and cinnabar, toxic enough that your lips tingle through the day. The eye treatments involve silver needles inserted at precise points, supposedly stimulating youthful circulation, but mostly just hurting. Your beautician, a Korean specialist who charges more than most people earn in lifetimes, works with grim determination. Pain is beauty's price, she mutters, painting another layer over stubborn reality. Dietary restrictions border on starvation. Bird's nest soup for breakfast. The gelatinous texture makes you gag, but it supposedly promotes skin elasticity. Lunch consists of white fungus and goji berries. Dinner of fish swim bladders in broth. Everything bland, colorless. Chosen for cosmetic rather than nutritional value. Your stomach cramps constantly. Body eating itself in pursuit of impossible youth. When you faint during morning exercises, Venerable Chu forces real food on you. Dead concubines hold no power, he reminds you, but you push the rice away after 3 bites. The treatments escalate into territory that would horrify your younger self. Weekly mercury steam baths that leave you dizzy and nauseous. injections of ground jade beneath facial skin, creating temporary plumpness that bruises purple before settling. Most disturbing, consumption of virgin boy eggs soaked in young boy's urine, supposedly containing youth essence. The taste makes you retch, but Ming Blossom's glowing skin across the banquet hall drives you to swallow. Desperation tastes exactly like what you'd expect. Hair treatments involve chemicals that burn your scalp raw. The fashionable pure black requires stripping natural color, then applying dyes made from iron filings and fermented beans. The process takes 6 hours monthly, your head throbbing while stylists work. Half your hair falls out from the harsh treatments, requiring elaborate wigs and extensions. You remember your mother combing your natural hair, how it shone without artifice. Now you wear other women's dead locks, wondering if they too sacrifice their beauty chasing impossible standards. Exercise regimens designed for teenage dancers leave your aging body screaming. You practice flexibility poses that once came naturally, joints popping ominously with each stretch. The dance master, paid triple rates to train someone your age, barely conceals his frustration. Lower, he demands as you attempt splits that threaten to tear tendons. The emperor expects ethereal grace, not cattle movements. You bite through your lip maintaining positions, tasting blood behind painted smiles. Tomorrow, you'll barely walk. But tonight, you must float like Ming Blossom's shadow. Sleep becomes beauty's casualty. You retire at sunset for maximum rest, but lie awake calculating wrinkles like debts. Dawn arrives without real rest, just fitful dozing between position changes designed to prevent face creasing. Special pillows support your neck at precise angles. Silk wrappings prevent expression lines. You've trained yourself not to smile genuinely, too many creases, adopting instead a practiced half curve that suggests amusement without muscle commitment. Joy itself becomes cosmetic liability. The palace physicians privately warn about accumulating toxins. Lead poisoning shows in your trembling hands. Mercury damage in bleeding gums. Your kidneys struggle processing the bizarre foods and supplements. One younger doctor suggests stopping all treatments, letting nature take its course. You dismiss him immediately. Nature's course leads to irrelevance, then death. Better to die beautiful than live forgotten. The older physicians understand, prescribing antidotes that barely offset the poisons you willingly consume. Clothing becomes architecture supporting failing structure. Corsets cinch tight enough to crack ribs, creating Ming Blossom's natural wasp waist through pure compression. Padded garments enhance curves that age has stolen. The fabrics grow heavier, hiding body beneath layers of expensive armor. You can barely breathe in full court dress, each step calculated to prevent revealing stiffness or pain. Dancing feels like performing underwater, every movement fighting fabric and flesh that no longer cooperate. Desperate measures multiply with each passing season. You try bathing in wine mixed with pearl powder, an ancient recipe that leaves you reeking of vinegar. Masks made from nightingale droppings supposedly brighten complexion. You wear them nightly despite the stench. Ground rhino horn supplements promise restored vitality, but deliver only nausea. Most extreme. You consider the blood of youth treatments whispered about in certain circles, transfusions from young virgins, but even desperation has limits. For now, the emotional toll proves worse than physical suffering. You catch servants pitying looks when they think you're not watching. Younger concubines whisper behind fans, making bets on when you'll finally surrender dignity. The emperor, when he bothers noticing you, shows the distant kindness reserved for elderly pets. Only your political power keeps you relevant, and that depends on physical presence you can barely maintain. Each public appearance demands days of preparation and recovery. Competition with Ming Blossom drives the extremes. When he appears with skin like fresh cream, you double mercury treatments until your own complexion achieves similar pallor. Along with hand tremors you hide in flowing sleeves. His flexible dance moves inspire you to attempt positions that tear muscles, spending weeks recovering while pretending injury doesn't exist. He knows what he's doing, deliberately flaunting youth you can't reclaim. Sometimes you catch him watching your struggles with satisfaction that makes murder seem reasonable. The worst moment comes during the Summer Lotus Festival. You've prepared for weeks, fasting until ribs show, treating skin until it glows like candlelight, practicing choreography until movements flow unconsciously. The performance begins beautifully, your experience compensating for physical limitations. Then, mid-spin, your knee betrays you, the pop audible to front row observers. You complete the turn through pure will, landing in graceful genuflection that disguises collapse. The Emperor applauds politely, while Ming Blossom smirks. You bow, smile, retreat with dignity intact. Only Venerable Chu sees the blood seeping through your robes where bone pierced skin. Recovery takes months pretending nothing happened. You appear at required functions in carefully chosen robes that allow minimal movement. When dancing is unavoidable, you create new styles emphasizing hand movements over leg work. The adaptation showcases your intelligence, but everyone knows why. Ming Blossom performs athletic leaps while you wave silk fans. The contrast screams louder than accusations. You increase beauty treatments to compensate, painting health over decay with heavier hands each day. By winter, the accumulation of toxins creates hallucinations. Sometimes Ming Blossom's face melts during conversations, revealing skull beneath. Mercury makes colors shift. Red becomes purple, blue turns green. You maintain composure through sheer practice, responding appropriately to conversations while reality warps. The treatments must continue. The alternative, accepting age, fading into background, means death before dying. At least fighting time provides illusion of control, even as poison eats you alive from inside out. The Emperor dies as he lived, surrounded by silk and secrets, his last breath rattling out while Ming Blossom holds one withered hand and you clutch the other. For a moment, you both freeze, understanding that this death changes everything. Then the race begins. Ming Blossom drops the Imperial hand like heated metal, rushing to alert his princely sponsors. You move slower but smarter, activating networks built over 15 years. By the time official drums announce the Emperor's passing, your messengers have already reached key generals, ministers, and provincial governors. The succession war starts before the body cools. Palace lockdown follows ancient protocols. No one enters or leaves until the new emperor is confirmed. This transforms the Forbidden City into an elegant battlefield where alliances shift hourly and yesterday's friend might poison tonight's tea. Guards patrol with hands on sword hilts, their loyalties as uncertain as everyone else's. The princes converge like sharks scenting blood, each bringing private armies disguised as honor guards. You count soldiers from your window, calculating which princes prepared best for this moment. The seventh prince's men look disciplined but outnumbered. Time to even those odds. Your first move involves the Empress Dowager, now the most powerful person alive until succession settles. Age has finally caught her. At 93, she barely recognizes visitors, but her seal still carries absolute authority. You arrive at her palace before other concubines think to try, bringing her favorite jasmine tea properly tested, and musicians who play melodies from her youth. For 3 hours, you feed her, massage her feet, and whisper reminders of conversations from years past. When she finally focuses, recognizing you, she smiles like a knife. Clever bird, tell me who should wear the crown. You name the 7th prince without hesitation. She nods, already forgetting by the time you leave. But her chamberlain, whom you've cultivated for precisely this moment, remembers everything. The crown prince dies that night, poisoned at his own celebration feast. Nobody seemed surprised. His weakness invited elimination. The 3rd prince responds by executing 2 of his brother's supporters in the palace courtyard, their heads mounted on pikes as warning. Blood seeps between pristine marble tiles, while servants pretend not to see. The 4th prince barricades himself in his compound, trusting walls more than allies. The 5th prince attempts negotiation, offering the 6th prince control of southern provinces for support. Your former master laughs, too drunk to recognize opportunity. Only the 7th prince moves strategically, securing granaries and water supplies while others chase symbols. Ming Blossom miscalculates badly. His sponsored 4th prince needs military support, so Ming Blossom attempts seducing the general of the northern armies. The general, a traditionalist who despises eunuchs, responds by having Ming Blossom stripped and whipped in the military courtyard, not fatally, but thoroughly enough to destroy that perfect skin. You don't order this humiliation, but you ensure witnesses spread detailed accounts. Ming Blossom's power derived from beauty. Without it, he's just another mutilated boy with enemies. He disappears into his quarters, emerging only at night, extensively veiled. Violence escalates as princes eliminate rivals. The 2nd prince's son gets strangled in his sleep. The 8th prince's favorite concubine falls from a mysteriously slippery balcony. Poison, blades, and accidents claim lives daily. You navigate this chaos through information rather than force. When the 3rd prince plans attacking the 7th's compound, you ensure the 7th knows exactly when and where. When the 5th prince's allies waver, you provide evidence of his secret negotiations with northern barbarians. Each strategic revelation weakens opposition while keeping your hands technically clean. The Empress Dowager's seal becomes the war's pivot point. Whoever controls it can issue edicts in her name, legitimizing their claim. The princes send increasingly desperate delegations to her palace, but your early cultivation pays off. Her chamberlain politely refuses all visitors, claiming the dowager needs rest. Meanwhile, you ghostwrite proclamations supporting the 7th prince, each bearing her authentic seal. The documents declare him most filial, most capable, most worthy of the mandate of heaven. Other princes rage about manipulation, but legal forms are observed. Bureaucracy becomes your weapon. A crisis emerges when the 3rd prince's forces capture the Imperial treasury. With gold comes power to buy loyalty, and soldiers' allegiances shift toward whoever pays best. The 7th prince's smaller force faces desertion until you activate contingency plans. Years of skimming from palace budgets created hidden reserves, dispersed across trusted merchants and temples. This shadow treasury opens now, gold flowing to ensure the 7th prince's soldiers stay loyal. The 3rd prince finds himself bidding against invisible resources, his captured treasury draining faster than expected. Sister Moon provides crucial intelligence about the general's meeting, the military leadership, Tired of princely bloodshed disrupting the capital, plans to intervene directly, installing whichever prince offers most stability. You attend the meeting uninvited but expected, your presence representing palace administrative continuity. The generals outline concerns: unpaid soldiers, disrupted supply lines, barbarian tribes testing borders while internal conflict distracts her. You present the seventh prince's prepared proposals, detailed plans addressing each issue, budgets already allocated, competent administrators ready for appointment. The contrast with other princes' vague promises resonates. When generals vote, the seventh prince wins narrowly. The palace burns on the seventh night, whether accidentally or deliberately. None can say. Flames consume the third prince's compound, trapping him and 200 supporters inside. Their screams echo across courtyards while fire brigades mysteriously arrive too late. The fourth and fifth princes read the omen clearly, fleeing to provincial estates rather than face similar fates. The sixth prince, your former master, drinks himself to death rather than choose sides. Scholar Fang sends a final letter reporting his passing, adding that he preserved your early intelligence reports as historical documents. Even in death, your old mentor protects your secrets. Dawn of the eighth day brings resolution. The seventh prince stands in the throne room, accepting the Empress Dowager's proclamation, written in your hand, sealed by her chamberlain, declaring him emperor. The remaining princes kneel in submission, those who survived understanding their new reality. You stand among the concubines, position deliberately modest, letting others claim visible glory. The new emperor's eyes find yours across the vast hall, acknowledging debt without words. Your investment in the overlooked seventh son pays ultimate dividends, but triumph tastes like ashes mixed with mercury. The succession war's casualties include dozens of your carefully cultivated allies. Your networks lie in tatters, needing reconstruction under new authority. Most critically, you're 43 now, an ancient relic in palace terms. The new emperor owes you everything but desires nothing. Your body holds no appeal for a vigorous 30-year-old with fresh concubines arriving daily. Political debt expires faster than beauty in these halls. You've won the war but face an uncertain peace. The purges begin immediately. The new emperor, advised by counselors who fear your influence, systematically removes anyone who knew the old regime's secrets. Your name appears on no death lists, too obvious, given your role in his ascension, but the message clarifies through subtler means. Your intelligence network gets dismantled piece by piece. Trusted servants receive reassignments to distant provinces. Your quarters get relocated to a smaller compound, still luxurious but notably peripheral. The monthly stipend remains generous while real power evaporates like morning dew. Ming Blossom's fate provides cold comfort. Scarred from his whipping, politically radioactive from backing the wrong prince, he faces the eunuch's ultimate nightmare: irrelevance. The new administration assigns him to the palace of forgotten concubines, where former favorites wait to die among memories. You glimpse him once, shuffling through gardens with other discarded beauties, his face hidden behind veils that can't disguise his broken walk. Part of you pities him. You both played the game with bodies that betrayed you, but survival allows little room for sympathy toward fallen rivals. The palace of forgotten concubines squats at the forbidden city's edge like an afterthought, its once golden roof tiles now faded to the color of old bones. Your arrival cart passes through gates that shriek on rusted hinges. Maintenance stopped mattering here decades ago. Former beauties peer from windows with eyes like burnt-out lanterns, watching fresh discard join their ranks. At 45, you're actually young for this place. Some residents have waited here 60 years for deaths that take their time arriving. The receiving eunuch, himself ancient beyond counting, assigns you quarters with the bored efficiency of someone cataloguing inventory for storage. Your new home consists of 2 rooms that might have been elegant when the previous dynasty built them. Now paint peels from walls like diseased skin, and cold wind whistles through cracks no one bothers repairing. The furniture, a bed, table, 2 chairs, bears the scratches and stains of previous occupants who probably died on that same mattress. You brought what wealth you could hide, but most assets got frozen during the transition. The new emperor's gratitude extends to keeping you alive, not comfortable. After chambers with heated floors and running water, this feels like entombment. The daily routine settles like dust on a tomb shelf. Morning rice arrives cold, portions calculated to sustain life without providing satisfaction. You share a communal kitchen with 12 other discarded concubines, each guarding their meager supplies like dragons hoard gold. The woman assigned the room next to yours, Aunt Willow, was once the previous emperor's favorite, 30 years ago. Now she survives on 1 meal daily, stretching resources she believes must last another 30 years. Death comes slowly here, she explains while measuring rice grain by grain, best to prepare for the long wait. Money becomes immediate obsession, your hidden funds, secreted through years of careful embezzlement, won't last forever at even subsistence spending. The palace provides basic shelter and minimal food. Nothing more. Medicine, warm clothing, lamp oil, everything costs. You discover the economy of forgotten concubines, selling old jewelry for a fraction of its worth, embroidering for wealthy merchants who fetishize imperial connections, copying sutras for temples that pay in rice. The lucky ones have families outside who send support. You have only what you saved and skills that no longer command premium prices. Physical degradation accelerates without expensive treatment, so the mercury and lead poisoning from years of cosmetics fully manifest now. Trembling hands make fine embroidery impossible. Clouded vision turns reading into struggle. Your teeth loosen from decades of toxic beauty regimens, falling out one by one until chewing becomes careful negotiation. The palace physicians technically serve forgotten concubines, but require bribes for anything beyond cursory examination. You pay for monthly visits, receiving herbs that barely manage symptoms while underlying damage compounds inexorably. The social hierarchy among discarded women proves as vicious as any imperial court. Former ranks matter less than current resources and remaining connections. Those who receive outside support lord over those who don't. Women who retain beauty longest mock those who age naturally. You navigate carefully. Too prominent to hide, but too poor to dominate. Your role in the recent succession grants temporary respect. Everyone knows you helped crown the current emperor. But gratitude has short half-life among the desperate. Winter arrives like a personal enemy. The palace of forgotten concubines receives coal rations last. Often nothing when supplies run short. You burn furniture for warmth, starting with chairs you'll never use for entertaining. Ice forms inside windows while you huddle under every piece of fabric you own. 3 concubines freeze to death in their rooms, discovered only when neighbors notice the smell. Their few possessions get distributed among survivors through grim lottery. You win a thick quilt that still holds the shape of its previous owner's corpse. Boredom might be worse than cold. Hours stretch like pulled taffy with nothing to fill them. You can't afford lamp oil for evening activities. So darkness means lying awake remembering when your time mattered. Some women go mad from monotony, developing elaborate fantasies about recalled glory. One insists she's still 18, painting her face with flour and charcoal in grotesque approximation of beauty. Another holds daily audiences for imaginary courtiers, issuing edicts no one obeys. You fight similar dissent by maintaining rigid routines, exercises that torture arthritic joints, mental recitations of poetry that sometimes slip away mid-verse. News from outside arrives sporadically through servants who pity or can be bribed. The new emperor consolidates power efficiently, purging anyone connected to previous intrigues. Several of your former allies face execution for crimes suddenly remembered. Scholar Fang dies in prison, officially suicide, but everyone knows better. The Sixth Prince's household gets disbanded entirely. Concubines scattered to provinces or forgotten palaces like yours. Ming Blossom occupies rooms 3 courtyards over, but you've never crossed paths. Former rivals mean nothing when survival consumes all attention. Spring brings minimal relief and new humiliations. During Tomb Sweeping Festival, forgotten concubines receive permission to visit the cemetery where deceased palace women lie in unmarked graves. You stand among hundreds of bent figures, each contemplating their future burial spot. No names mark these graves, just numbers indicating year and season of death. The mass grave for winter casualties lies freshest, earth still settling over bodies buried without ceremony. You calculate how many years your remaining funds might last, whether you'll die in warm months that allow individual burial or cold ones that mean anonymous mass interment. Selling your body's remnants becomes necessary as resources dwindle, not for sex. Nobody wants elderly eunuchs, but for other purposes. Medical students pay for examination of unusual anatomies, studying how castration affects aging. Alchemists buy hair and nail clippings, believing eunuch parts hold special properties. Most degrading. You sell your preserved genitals back to dealers who resell them to fresh-cut boys whose families can't afford to keep the originals. The leather pouch that traveled with you from farm to palace finally leaves, taking your last physical connection to wholeness. Disease spreads quickly through cramped quarters filled with elderly bodies. A coughing sickness claims 5 women in your building, their hacking echoing through thin walls. You catch it inevitably, spending weeks believing each breath might be last. No money for proper medicine means relying on folk remedies. Boiled ginger, prayers to half-remembered gods, bargains with death for just more time. Recovery leaves you weaker, voice permanently hoarsened. The beautiful instrument that once charmed emperors now croaks like dying birds. Memories become both comfort and torture. During hunger pangs, you recall banquets where food got wasted by the cartload. While shivering under thin blankets, you remember furs that cost villages. The contrast drives some mad, but you cling to memories as proof you existed beyond this living death. Sometimes you tell stories to younger forgotten concubines, those merely 40 or so, about palace intrigues and imperial favors. They listen with hungry attention, needing confirmation that their suffering once meant something. Survival strategies evolve toward pure endurance. You learn which wild plants growing in neglected gardens provide nutrition. Rainwater collected in buckets supplements rationed well water. Candle stubs gathered from temple offerings provide precious light. Every resource gets stretched, reused, transformed. Old robes become blankets, then bandages, then fuel. You understand now why some concubines seem like ghosts, They're practicing for the transition, becoming less substantial daily until death merely formalizes what already occurred. A letter arrives on your 50th birthday, carried by a servant you don't recognize. The new emperor, in rare gesture of remembrance, grants you a small pension, enough for basic survival, not comfort. The amount barely covers food and minimal medicine, but it means the difference between slow decline and rapid collapse. You cry reading it, hating yourself for gratitude towards someone who discarded you after using your networks to gain power. But principles matter less than rice in your bowl. You'll take his coins and live another year, maybe 2, maybe 10. In the palace of forgotten concubines, that counts as victory. The space outside the palace walls exists in a different universe, one you haven't touched in 40 years. ATCCs. They expel you at dawn with efficiency reserved for removing waste. A bundle of threadbare clothes, 3 strings of copper coins, and dismissal papers marking you as surplus to requirements. The guard who escorts you to the gate avoids eye contact, embarrassed by your reduction to refuse. At 53, arthritic and toothless, you shuffle into Beijing's streets like a ghost accidentally made flesh. The city noises, vendors hawking, children screaming, wheels grinding against stone, assault ears accustomed to forgotten palace silence. Your first night outside introduces homelessness with brutal clarity. The coins buy a bowl of congee and shelter in a filthy inn's common room, pressed between beggars who eye your palace soft skin with calculating interest. By morning, someone has stolen your shoes and half the remaining coins. You wake to find yourself truly equal to the street dwellers, shoeless, nearly penniless, marked as prey. The innkeeper expels you for lacking funds for another night. You join the flowing mass of Beijing's forgotten, learning quickly that former imperial status means nothing when you can't afford breakfast. The begging territories around the Forbidden City operate under strict hierarchies. Prime spots near gates where officials pass require fighting younger, stronger claimants. You settle for periphery positions where foot traffic provides minimal charity. Your cupped hands shake from mercury poisoning as much as humiliation. Passers-by occasionally drop copper pieces, more often averting eyes from the grotesque sight of fallen grandeur. You recognize some faces, minor officials who once bowed to you, servants who fetched your tea. They recognize you too, walking faster to escape the discomfort of witnessing your descent. Weather becomes your primary enemy. Summer sun blisters skin no longer protected by pavilion shade. Autumn rain soaks through threadbare robes, leaving you shivering in doorways. Winter arrives like death's preview. Each night a battle against freezing. You learn which temple steps retain heat longest, which market stalls discard edible scraps, where guards tolerate sleeping beggars and where they beat them. Your body, already damaged from decades of cosmetic poisoning, deteriorates rapidly under exposure. Joints swell until walking becomes tortured shuffling. Infected sores cover legs constantly folded in begging posture. Other beggars teach survival through example and occasional kindness. Old Chen, legless from some forgotten war, shows you how to spot sympathetic faces in crowds. Grandmother Wu shares which temples provide free rice on holy days. The blind fortune teller explains how to perform pitiful enough to inspire charity without disgusting donors into avoidance. You learn to exaggerate your palace background when it helps. Some people pay for stories of imperial scandal and hide it when former connections mark you for robbery. Truth becomes as flexible as your murdered pride. Memories transform from comfort to torment. while gnawing mouldy bread. You remember selecting which delicacies to reject at imperial banquets, sleeping on frozen stone. You recall silk sheets worth more than the surrounding neighborhood. The contrast feels like punishment designed by particularly creative gods. Sometimes you wake believing you're still in the palace, that this is just a nightmare. Reality reasserts through cold, hunger, and the stench of your own unwashed body. Those moments of forgetting and remembering might be cruelest of all. The district around the palace becomes your entire world. You know each alley's characteristics, which flood during rain, which harbour violent gangs, which occasionally shelter charity workers. Your circuit covers maybe half a mile, the maximum your ruined body can manage. Beyond this territory lies unknown Beijing, as foreign now as distant provinces. You become fixture like broken statuary, part of scenery wealthy people unconsciously avoid. Local merchants know you, some occasionally offering expired food or torn fabric. These tiny kindnesses feel enormous against the background of general indifference. Illness arrives inevitably. The cough that started in forgotten concubine quarters worsens without treatment. Each breath rattles with fluid your body can't expel. Fever comes and goes, leaving you weaker each cycle. During one particularly bad episode, you collapse near the palace gates, body refusing further commands. Guards debate whether to move you or let nature solve the problem. Finally, a young soldier, perhaps reminded of his grandmother, carries you to a doorway out of foot traffic. You survive that time, though part of you wonders why you bother. Former rivals occasionally appear in your peripheral vision. Once, you spot Ming blossom across a market square, his beauty destroyed by poverty and scarring. Begging with covered face, your eyes meet for a moment. Recognition, shared understanding of fallen glory, then mutual turning away. What would be the point of acknowledgement? You're both ghosts now, haunting the edges of a world that consumed then discarded you. Later, you hear he died during winter, frozen in an alley. You feel nothing, no satisfaction, no pity. Feeling requires energy you can't spare. The seasons blur together, marked mainly by how they try to kill you. You develop animal awareness of weather changes, seeking shelter before rain arrives, hoarding scraps before cold depletes charity. Your world shrinks to immediate needs, food, warmth, avoiding violence. Higher thoughts disappear into survival's constant grind. You forget poetry that once flowed like water, lose count of years, can't recall faces of people you manipulated into power. The brilliant mind that navigated palace intrigue reduces to calculating which garbage might contain edible remnants. Begging near the palace provides entertainment through glimpses of current dramas. New favorites arrive in sedan chairs, beauty glowing with temporary power. You recognize the cycle, the initial glory, gradual competition, inevitable replacement. Sometimes you want to warn them, scream prophecies of their futures, but your voice, ruined by illness and exposure, produces only croaks. Besides, would they listen? You wouldn't have. Back when beauty and cleverness seemed like permanent currency, let them learn as you did, through experience's brutal teaching. A strange peace arrives with acceptance of approaching death. You're 56 or 7. Precision stopped mattering, and your body announces its surrender through cascading failures. Vision clouds beyond correction. Breathing becomes conscious effort. Your legs, swollen with fluid, barely support shuffling between begging spot and sleeping corner. Each dawn surprises you by arriving, your continued existence a mystery defying logical explanation. You've become those ancient concubines you once pitied, reduced to biological persistence without purpose. The final winter announces itself through bone-deep cold that no longer triggers shivering. Your body lacks energy for even that protective response. You settle into your usual doorway as snow begins falling, each flake a small frozen kiss of coming sleep. The leather pouch containing your severed parts sold decades ago. You'll enter afterlife incomplete, but then you've been incomplete since 12 years old. Perhaps the other side recognizes all the ways people can be cut apart, not just the physical ones. Your last coherent thought involves strange gratitude, not for the life lived, too much pain, too little genuine joy, but for the ending. No more hunger, no more cold, no more remembering when you mattered. The palace walls loom through swirling snow, as distant now as the moon. You helped crown an emperor once. You survived longer than anyone expected. That has to count for something, even if you can't remember what. The snow continues falling as your breathing slows, each exhalation a little shallower than the last. Somewhere in the palace, new concubines learn to pour tea with perfect grace. Ministers scheme and princes plot. The endless cycle continues, as it has for centuries, as it will long after the last person who remembers your name joins you in whatever comes next. Your body relaxes into the doorway that's been your final home, just another shape the morning servants will need to clear before the district wakes. But for now, in these last moments, you're beyond their reach, beyond anyone's reach. The cold doesn't hurt anymore. Nothing hurts anymore in the swirling snow. You might almost see your younger self, that farm boy who walked into a knife master's room to save his family. He'd be horrified to see where that path led, or perhaps he'd understand. You both did what survival demanded, paid prices that seemed reasonable at the time. The accounting only comes due at the end. The palace bells ring the hour, bronze voices carrying over sleeping Beijing. You've heard them 10,000 times, marking moments of triumph and humiliation, pleasure and pain. Now they sound like a lullaby, calling you to the longest sleep. Your eyes close for the last time as the snow gently covers what remains, transforming a discarded eunuch into part of the landscape. By dawn, you're just another small drift among many, waiting for spring's thaw to reveal what winter claimed. The city wakes and moves around your stillness, life flowing past death without pause. Somewhere, a desperate father sharpens a knife. The wheel turns. The story begins again. But yours is ended, finally and completely, in a doorway that might as well be a palace for all the difference it makes now. You're free of beauty and ugliness, power and powerlessness, the body that defined and confined you. Whatever the afterlife holds, it can't be worse than what you've already survived. And in that thought, perhaps, lies the only victory that matters. You survived until you didn't have to anymore.